Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Once again, Assalamu alaikum. Let's start the session with a beautiful qiraat. For that, I would like to invite Brother Nabil.
Am I audible?
Yes.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلولا إذا بلغت الحلقوم وأنتم حينئذ تنظرون ونحن أقرب إليه منكم ولكن لا تبصرون فلولا إن كنتم غير مدينين ترجعونها إن كنتم صادقين فأما إن كان من المقربين فروح وريحان وجنة نعيم وأما إن كان من أصحاب اليمين فسلام لك من أصحاب اليمين وأما إن كان من المكذبين الضالين فنزل من حميم وتصلية جحيم إن هذا لهو حق اليقين فسبح باسم ربك العظيم صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Nabil. Now for an introductory talk, I would like to invite Sister Fadia.
Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible?
Yes, sister.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So here we are for another IPD session, and which is a continuation of last week's session on the topic Ambiguous. So in last session, we learned about halal and haram, about fiqh, the sources of fiqh, about aqidah, about difference of opinion on various matters among the scholars, and how leading a life of haram can lead to a life without peace, how it can lead to our own self-destruction. Now, after this, let's see what all we have to learn in today's session on the same topic. So for that, make sure that you're ready, sit straight, take a deep breath, sharpen your ears, turn off your social media notifications, keep your notebooks and pens ready, turn off your mic and video. Also, make sure that you are ready to interact in the chat box whenever required. And most importantly, keep your intentions pure and set them in the right way so that we get rewarded for every second that we spend here. So I hope you all are ready. Let's begin in the name of Allah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Now I would like to pass on to Brother Wafi Shihad for the session.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah khaliq al-wujud min al-adam وجاعل النور من الظلم ومخرج الصبر من الألم وملقي التوبة على الندم ونشكره على المصائب كما نشكره على النعم والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Today inshallah we'll be continuing with what we were learning in the last class. We learned about a particular hadith that talks about the mushtabihat, which basically means areas that are a bit doubtful, areas which we don't know are completely haram or completely halal. How do we navigate through it? How do we navigate through the ambiguity? Should we just fall into the trap of haram because someone said it's halal? Should we stay away from something halal because someone just said it is haram because they don't like it? And there are a lot of important things that we need to understand from the field of jurisprudence and usul fiqh to properly navigate it. But before that, let me start with a question. All right, let me start with a question. And just like, I mentioned in every one of my sessions, I don't like to keep it as a monologue. All right, I'm trying to learn from you and you're trying to learn from me. All right, so I'll be asking you a lot of questions and I want each and every one of you to participate in the chat. If that is clear, say yes in the chat. If that is clear, say yes in the chat. Okay. Now, I'm giving you a situation, a hypothetical situation, and I want you to tell me how you would act in that situation, all right? Imagine that you went to another country, all right? You went to another country, you have your family in your car, and you really love your family. You really love your wife, you really love your children, you really love your parents. You're traveling, on this long journey, consider it a road safari, all right? So you're traveling on your car and you're driving in this foreign country. You don't know the places. And now you're traveling and, the time gets late and it, becomes night. So you started traveling in the morning and it has gotten to night. Now you're traveling and you reached a place that is very, very lonely. The place is very, very lonely. You don't know the place, the country is foreign, the country is strange for you. You don't know the culture. You don't know anything about this country. So you stopped at a junction and in front of you, there are two roads. All right. In front of you, there are two roads. Now, there's actually one person who's actually standing near the junction. Like that is the only person there. Now, this person seems to be the one who's like living in that country, like a person who is very native to that country. Now you ask the person, like you went near the person, you said, Assalamu alaikum, and then you ask the person, I'm going to this place, which route is better for me to take, the left route or the right route? The person thinks and the person says, if you take the route on your right, it is very short. You can get to your place fast. It's going to be easy. But there is a possibility that it might be a wrong route. There is a possibility that there might be a lot of robbers on the path. There is a possibility that there might be thieves on the path. They could harm your family. And then he points towards the left path and then he says, the left path will also lead to the same trajectory, to the same destination, but it'll be very hard. It's a very long drive. It's a very long drive, but it'll get to you to your destination. All right. So there are two paths. One path is very risky. There are thieves. There are possibilities of being robbed. Your family might be attacked, but it might lead to the right path. If you look at the left path is the path that is the longest. It takes the long route. It might be hard. You'll need to travel a lot. Now, the question I would like to ask you is this. Would you choose the left path or the right path? The left path or the right path? So the majority opinion here is that you would choose the left path, right? You would choose the left path because you love your family. You don't want, your family to get hurt. You choose the left path. Similar is actually the case with our life here when it comes to, navigating between something that is doubtable, something that has, doubts in it. For example, when you get to a position where in which there are some things we don't know it's haram or halal. And there are certain things like we know if we choose, okay, there is a possibility that it might be wrong. There is a possibility that, my iman might get hurt. And in this analogy, your family can be compared to your iman. You love your iman. You want to protect your iman, right? So if you choose the right path, you know that, okay, it might be easy. All right, getting that interest for building my home might be easy, but that might be wrong. If I do this, it might be wrong, but it'll be very enjoyable. It'll be very enjoyable. It might not be fully haram per se, but internally that if you do it, it's going to hurt your iman. And on the left, it's going to be a bit harder because you'll have to stay away from a lot of things, but you know that it'll get you to Jannah. You know that it'll get you to the right destination. So here, which path would you choose? Would you choose the left path or the right path? In this analogy of Iman, the left path, right? So that is actually the path that we should be choosing. Our primary aim here is to protect our Iman. We're not here to enjoy our life and just enjoy and engage in every kind of pleasure that we want. We're not here for that. We're here to protect our Iman until we die and get to Jannah. And in Jannah, we'll be able to enjoy every single thing that we want. Now, there is a clear reason why I gave you this particular analogy, and we'll discuss further with regards to this very soon, inshallah. Now, if somebody told you that something is haram or something is halal, do you think first you should be looking at the scientific evidence? You should be, filtering it with your rationality and your logic, and then, critically analyzing it. Is that how we are supposed to accept something in Islam? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. And this is actually a huge crisis today. Due to the spread of liberalism, secularism, rationality after the, post-industrial revolution, we see, this trend being like rising. After the, Renaissance, the skeptic tendencies, the scientific endeavors has developed, and therefore people think that the ultimate truth is science. The ultimate truth is science. And therefore, when we say anything Islamic, they try to filter it out through scientific barriers, I would say. Not scientific filters, but scientific barriers. Scientific barriers. It's actually a very problematic tendency that we have, especially among the youth. If Allah says something, it is not up to our limited rationality or logic to filter it out, and contingent on that we accept or we deny. This is a very, very false way of approaching things. It's a very false way of approaching things. This is the divine law of the creator of the entire universe. We may not be able to fully comprehend the wisdom behind it completely, sometimes due to our lack of intellect, right? I did mention this, in the earlier class. If we, take our little child, who is a toddler, maybe, 3 to 4 years old, if we take them to the supermarket, they want to buy a lot of chocolates, and we tell them not to buy a lot of chocolates. In their limited intelligence, do you think they see a problem with eating chocolates? In their limited logic and limited rationality, do you think they see a problem with eating chocolates? What do you think? No, right? For them, eating chocolates is good. Eating chocolates is good. Like if Allah gave them, powerful speaking abilities, they would probably start giving arguments. They would say, eating chocolate is good for you. It gives enjoyment. The primary aim of life is to get meaning. From a hedonistic perspective and the materialistic pursuits, getting chocolates will actually improve the quality of my life. It'll lead to a triggering of dopamine, the neurotransmitter of my brain, which leads to a better life quality. So therefore, I need to buy my chocolates, right? I mean, if they had good speaking abilities, they would probably say something like this, and they're depending on their limited logic. But the mother knows that if the child eats a lot of chocolates, it's going to destroy his health, right? It's going to destroy his health, right? So logic and rationality, it keeps on evolving. As the more we develop in life, the more our brain structure and cognitive power and abilities and efficiencies and proficiencies increase and improve. Right? So don't depend on logic and rationality. Don't depend on logic and rationality, but depend on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. We believe. Sami'na wa ata'na. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says something, khalas. Like that is what is more important to me. That is what is more important to me. Right? Now we're going to be discussing about something that we call as mushtabihat. Before that, in the last class, okay, let me ask you a question. And make sure you give me the right answer, or else I'll punish each and every one of you, imposition 100 times. All right, just kidding. The question is this: what is the meaning of ikhtilaf? We discussed this in the last class. What is the meaning of ikhtilaf? Very good. Difference of opinion. Difference of opinion, right? Ikhtilaf means difference of opinion. All right. Now, mushtabihat means doubtful matters. If you want, write it down. Mushtabihat. So between haram and halal, there are certain matters that might be doubtful or ambiguous. All right. There are issues in which scholars have ikhtilaf on, where in which there are dalils on both sides. Right. If you go to one scholar, they'll give a certain dalil. If you go to another scholar, they'll give you a certain dalil. And there are a few complicated cases of jurisprudence. All right. There are certain complicated cases of jurisprudence. But when it comes to these matters, we need to know how to navigate through this. How to navigate through this. Have you ever been in such a situation wherein which you see difference of opinion and you're confused? Okay. Now, there are a few fundamental things that we need to understand here, and then we'll go ahead, inshallah. Now, it's always better to avoid the doubtful matters for the sake of protecting your iman, for the sake of protecting your family. All right? Your iman is your family. So avoid the doubtful matters to protect your what? To protect your what? To protect your iman. That is your fundamental, aim. That is your fundamental aim. For example, if you go to certain scholars, they would tell you that getting that interest loan for the sake of building your home is all right. But if you go to any other scholar, they would say that it's completely wrong. That is completely wrong. And you know that interest is wrong as a principle, and you know the negative effects of interest. So it is always better, like even if you see a loophole here, even if you see a possibility of you engaging in that, it's better to avoid it. And we'll discuss, the different internal nuances of this particular topic as well, inshallah. Don't gamble with mustabihat. Write it down in the deepest part of your brain. All right? Don't gamble with mustabihat. If you gamble with mustabihat, you are going to fall knowingly or unknowingly. It's going to hurt your iman. It's going to hurt your iman, right? So always take the risk-free path. Always take the risk-free path. Similar to the example that we mentioned earlier, you're going, into a foreign country, you're trying to find and navigate, right? You'd obviously take the risk-free path. You'd obviously take the risk-free path, right? When it comes to your health, imagine that you went to a doctor and the doctor, said that you have this kind of illness and you have to do a surgery. Would you very directly go and do the surgery, or would you go to more specialists? You would try to inquire more information. Would you try to take the most risk-free path? What would you do? Would you take the risk-free path, or would you just depend on one scholar or one doctor? One doctor. If you depend on one doctor, type 1. If you will depend on more doctors, type 2. So the majority of opinion here is number 2, right? You would try to depend on more specialists. You would go to the best specialist in that particular topic, doctor who is specialized, who is having an MD and a PhD in that topic, and you will try to inquire with them, right? That is when it comes to your physical health. What about your spiritual health? What about your iman, which is much, much important, which is 100 times more important than your physical health? Are you just trying to depend on the opinion of one scholar without asking more scholars? Are you trying to take the most risk-free path? The most risk-free path here? No. So we got to be really careful. We got to protect our iman. And ikhtilaf al-a'imma rahmatul lil ummah. Sometimes the ikhtilaf of the a'imma, of the scholar, is actually a rahmatul lil ummah. It means it's going to be a mercy for the ummah. And Islam is actually flexible to a lot of degree, but that doesn't mean everything easy in the world is Islam. There are some liberals who use certain hadith to actually justify their sins, and we'll discuss that in the upcoming slides. But what we need to understand is practicing Islam can be easy and hard depending on the regulation that we are trying to follow. And there's actually a hadith that says ad-dinu yusr, which means religion is easy. But does that mean al-yusru deen? Does that mean everything easy is deen? And this is a very distinctive categorization. We'll also discuss that as we move ahead, inshallah. A primary thing that we need to understand is that we should never do fatwa shopping. Does anyone know what fatwa shopping means? Anyone know fatwa shopping? We go to a shopping mall, we pick out the things that we like. There are some people, if they want something, their internal self is oriented towards something. A good example, I have seen very recently, in a person who came for counseling with regards to, masturbation addiction. That person came to me and I told him very clearly that this particular act that you're engaging in is haram. So what this guy, since this guy is very much addicted, he tries to get, sources from the Quran and the Sunnah and saying that this is not directly mentioned in the Holy Quran, this is not directly mentioned in the Hadith. How can you say that this is haram? How can you say that this is wrong? Like, he was trying to justify. He was trying to cherry pick. But if you look at 90% of the scholars for the past 1,400 years, you would see very unanimously all of them telling and synonymously telling that it is haram. It is haram, but you're trying to cherry pick, a few things here and there, cherry pick the opinions of certain scholars. Ibn Hazm said this scholar said that, and therefore, contemporary times we have to do this, we have this opinion, that opinion. No, that is not how we should be approaching certain issues. It's not how we should be approaching certain issues. And a very, surprising thing was this. And let me ask you, is doing drugs haram? Is doing drugs haram? Is doing drugs haram? Like, it's very clear, right? Like, it's haram. And a friend of mine who studied in Jamia Millia, he actually narrated to me a very funny incident. There was a guy, a social activist. I don't want to name him. You guys probably know him because he's pretty famous on social media. He used to be. I don't know now. I don't follow social media much now. So this guy, he used to take in marijuana. All right, he's taking marijuana. Was a Muslim. He prays 5 times a day. And people, like, if we told him that is haram, like, he used to have a very comprehensive set of text and document proving that it is halal. Like, the guy went to an extreme when he researched and found out new dalail, like new evidences that the past 1,400 years of scholars who spent their entire lives couldn't find. A very brilliant guy, mashallah, right? Subhanallah. So don't cherry pick dalails. Don't cherry pick quotes, facts and figures and distort and misinterpret them for the sake of fitting your nafs and fitting your desires, right? Because with a little bit of tweaking and misquoting, anything can be made halal. Anything can be made halal. Let me ask you, is pornography haram or halal? Is pornography haram or halal? It is very clearly haram. It is very clearly haram. And I will cover this more when I take the course on pornography addiction, which I'm planning to take for COG, maybe before Ramadan as I get time, inshallah. But there's actually a specific guy like who wrote an entire book proving that it is halal. Proving that it is halal. He wrote an entire book. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And the guy, uses a lot of reference, Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, this, that, this Quran verse, that Quran verse. It's a very sad reality. So when you depend on, when you want to know fatwa, ask to well-known established scholars. All right, don't ask someone who just completed a diploma on Islamic sciences for 2 years and doesn't know anything much at all about Islam. It's always better to stick with the jumhur. Does anyone know the meaning of jumhur? Jumhur. So when we are learning fiqh, the teacher teaching the fiqh, he will say, في هذا المسألة يوجد اختلاف. اختلف العلماء على 3 أقوال أو 4 أقوال أو قولين. It basically means like when we discuss a particular mas'ala, a particular ruling on Islam, the scholar teaching us would say, okay, there is multiple difference, like multiple opinions on this particular topic, right? They'll say اختلاف العلماء. But right after that, he will add in one more thing. He'll say, لكن قال جمهور العلماء, which means majority of the scholars. Jumhur, write it down. Jumhur basically means majority of the scholars. So we always try to stick with the Jama'ah, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, right? Because the Prophet ﷺ very clearly said that the majority of the scholars can't deviate. The majority of the scholars can't deviate, like fully, like 90% of the scholars can't deviate on a particular mas'ala. So Jumhur basically means majority of the scholars. We stick with the majority of the scholars. It's always the most risk-free path. It is always the most risk-free path. Now, when I say scholars, I don't mean the low, level scholars. The low level scholars, I do not mean to insult them, but what I'm saying is the scholars who might have just completed a few years in Islamic sciences, who are very young. No, stick with the scholars who are much established in Deen, who are well known, who have written multiple books, like who are considered as kibar al-ulama, who are considered as great scholars, who are considered as great scholars. All right. And don't give fatwas. Don't give fatwas if you are not a scholar. It's also a grave matter. It's also a grave matter. You know, I remember this, like it's a very funny incident. You know, we had a family gathering, if I remember correctly. You know, all the extended family was there. I was very young at that time. And, you know, after eating food and everything, like everyone will have their desserts, right? Like eating ice cream and all these things. Like they're sitting in the office room, the guest room, and they're, you know, enjoying their time. And, you know, we know the uncles and the, you know, elder people, like they like to have, you know, discussions on politics, on religious matters and all those things, right? Now, one of them was discussing, I don't wish to name what mas'ala it is, but like one of them started with a topic that was very complicated in Islamic jurisprudence, wherein the great scholars, even the great scholars had ikhtilaf on it. They started with that particular topic and they started, you know, a friendly discussion on it. Like it almost turned into a debate, like one side saying that it's right, side saying that it's wrong. They're having this, you know, huge discussion. It was a very fun discussion. Everyone is enjoying, but at that time, like I was just thinking, imagine if this was a topic, you know, something that is much complicated in any other field than jurisprudence. Imagine that, you know, the discussion was on the medical prescriptions for pneumono ultramicroscopic silicovolcanoconiosis, which is a disease that affects the heart. Do you think everyone will be giving their opinions? Do you think everyone will be giving their opinions? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. They will refer to specialists. Like they will refer to specialists. And even if you go to a specialist, like if this is a very complicated case, like they will just keep their mouth shut. They'll say, give me some time. I'll discuss with other doctors who are specialized in this field, other surgeons, and I'll get back to you. That's what they will say. But here we have people who are engineers, who are doctors, you know, who are from secular fields. They haven't studied Islamic fiqh. They haven't studied usul fiqh. They haven't studied Islamic sciences. But here they are very lackadaisically, you know, and very like without any boundaries, like they're discussing matters which are beyond them, And this is a very grave matter. This is a very grave matter. And when it comes to the matters of Islamic fiqh, it's far more dangerous because you're going to be answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're going to be answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't give fatwas if you are not a scholar. All right? Don't give fatwas if you are not a scholar. To actually give a fatwa, the amount of studies that you need to do is like mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. There's a book that I read, and in that book, I think it was written by Zakir al-Khandalawi. I think the book was titled Sharia and Tariqa, if I remember. I read it 3 years before. But in that book, like it says, I'm paraphrasing obviously because it was very long ago. It says like a person who, you know, who can give fatwa should be a person who has mastered, you know, usul fiqh. Like he mentioned about 15 fields. And then he says that this person should have 20 years of experience. Like he's giving a lot of criteria for a person to actually give a fatwa. Like that is actually faqih, a person who has the right to give a fatwa. If you look at Imam Malik mastered a lot of sciences in a very young age. He was a young scholar. He has mastered a lot of different fields of Islamic sciences, so much so that he became one of the most eminent people in those fields. But even then, he did not give a fatwa until he went to a lot of scholars in Medina. He got their permission, he got their idhn, and then, you know, he started giving fatwas. So giving fatwa is not a light matter. It's not a, you know, light matter. And also understand the difference between an alim and a da'i. A lot of people on the internet who, you know, give Islamic awareness, Islamic reminders, they are da'is and they're not an alim. All right. A da'i is a person who gives you Islamic reminders, who, you know, tries to get you closer to the Holy Quran and the Sunnah. They try to remind you. Very good people, mashallah. But an alim is actually a person who went deep into the field, who is a scholar, like who has studied for years and years and who know the field inside out. So when you ask for a fatwa, you're supposed to ask to an alim and not a da'i. And very sadly, we have this online da'wah culture where every da'i has, is trying to become a scholar. They're trying to become a scholar, right? And we have an epidemic of da'is like acting like scholars, right? Maybe, they watched a few videos on YouTube and they scrolled through a few articles. They might have taken a diploma of 2 years in Islamic science. They suddenly think that they have become great ulama. And they start this refutation culture. This guy is a mubtadi', this guy is a val, this guy is a mughal, this guy is that guy is that. Don't follow, this scholar. Don't follow that scholar. Like we are the firqatun najiyah. Like we are the chosen divinely right sect. We are this and we are that. Subhanallah. And these are most often very young people in their late 20s or the early 20s, right? They act like great scholars and great muftis, like giving fatwas, like giving 10 fatwas per day. Subhanallah. It's a very sad reality. It's a very sad reality, right? And then due to not having enough understanding of Islamic sciences, due to not having enough understanding of the hikmah of Islam, due to not having clear idea of the maqasid al-shar'iyyah and all these different aspects of Islam and Islamic jurisprudence, they try to get into this refutation culture with the worst adab you can imagine. With the worst adab you can imagine. If the great scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim saw these people acting like that, they would have shut them down. They would have shut them down, subhanallah. And they're producing videos saying that this guy is a backstabber, this guy is that, this guy is this, this guy is an egotistic maniac, and that guy is producing another video saying that this guy is that and this guy is this. And they don't understand the effect that it has on the Muslim youth. The Muslim youth who are trying very hard to hold on to the rope of Islam in a very liberal environment. Subhanallah. And these youngsters, they feel saddened by what's going on. And it slowly and slowly detaches them from Islam and from praying, and it deviates, them from the true path, and their iman gets eroded away. Is anyone able to relate to what I'm saying? If you're a person who follow the modern da'wah dramas, you might be very able to relate to what I'm saying. So this ignorant refutation culture that is filled with ignorance and arrogance, it's not rooted in Islam. But does that mean we say that these da'is are bad people? No, these da'is are people we should be respecting. These are people who have done very good da'wah sacrifices, who have brought people closer to Islam, mashallah. And we pray for them. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive them. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep them on the right path, right? So, we need to understand the difference between a scholar and a da'i. This is very, very important. Don't become a fatwa factory. Don't try to talk about things that you have no idea about. You yourself, if you're not a scholar, try to stay away from giving fatwas. Direct you to another scholar. If a person comes to you and asks a question, direct them to another scholar. Or if a person asks you a question and you know the answer to that, give that answer by referencing it to a scholar. Tell them, okay, Ibn Uthaymin said this, or Sheikh Salih al-Fawzan said this, Ibn Baz said this, or Sheikh Osama Abdul Azim Hamza has said this, right? Direct them to scholars. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah has said this. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah has said this. Give them the opinions of great scholars and don't give your personal independent opinions, right? Some people start by saying, in my humble opinion, in my perspective, in my point of view, according to my calculations. Like you got to be really careful. Like, what are you doing here? You're playing with the religion of God. Are you playing with the religion of God? When you say something is haram and halal, you're basically signing an authenticity certificate saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the mankind, has said that this is haram. You're speaking for God. You're speaking for God. So when you speak for God, you don't speak independently without, having a clear-cut knowledge of what you're speaking about. So we got to be really careful. When you ask for opinions, ask opinions to great scholars and don't depend on people who don't have a critical idea, a deeper, nuanced ghaya, a depth in the field that he is talking about. All right. And then we have the trend of people making excuses for something haram, right? People making excuses for something haram. If you talk to, recently I talked to a person who wanted to attend a certain celebration in their college, which was clearly a haram. All right, which was clearly a haram. There was no scope of ikhtilaf here. Going there and free mixing and dancing to DJ music by drinking and doing drugs. No scholar will tell you that is halal. But this guy, he's trying to make excuses. Okay, this celebration does not have this, route, this methodological route. Okay, what is the problem if I just, do a dress code? It's not haram in Islam to do a dress code. Like, he's looking at it from a very pixelated perspective, right? But if we ask these people from the depth of their conscience, they know that this is wrong, right? And we need to understand that justifying the haram is far greater sin than committing it. And we discussed the story of Iblis and Adam alayhi salatu wasalam. When Adam alayhi salatu wasalam fell, what did he do? فَتَلَقَّى آدَمٌ مِّن رَبِّهِ كَلِمَاتٍ فَتَابَ عَلَيْهِ إِنَّهُ هُوَ التَّوَّابُ الرَّحِيمُ. When Adam alayhi salatu wasalam fell, he asked Allah for forgiveness. What did Iblis do? فَأَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ فَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. فَأَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ, I think it's in chapter number 2, verse number 34. وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ فَسَجَدُوا إِلَّا إِبْلِيسَ أَبَى وَاسْتَكْبَرَ. He was very arrogant, was very egotistic, he was very proud of the sin that he committed. That is the difference. So don't justify your haram. Don't justify your haram. If you are falling into the sin, don't try to justify it. If you're addicted to something, or watching filth, or doing something bad, don't justify it. All right? Don't justify it. That is a big problem. Because when you justify it, you're playing God. You're playing God, right? Then we have liberalism. I don't need to tell you more about this because we are well aware of it. Imagine that you went to a shoe shop, all right? You went to a shoe shop, you want to buy a shoe, all right? Maybe a Nike, all right? Or an Alan Solly, like you're trying to buy a good shoe. And you saw a shoe that was very beautiful, but it doesn't fit your leg size. It doesn't fit your leg size. If it doesn't fit your leg size, what would you do? Would you cut your legs to fit the shoe? Would you cut your legs to fit the shoe? Is that what would you do? You take a knife and you just cut your legs there itself. If you do that, you would be some psychopath, right? So some problem, the person with bipolar or schizophrenic disorder or something like that, right? So you don't cut the legs to fit the shoes. And liberalism, a lot of liberal Muslims, they cut the Islamic jurisprudence to fit liberalism. We don't do that. There's actually a book written on homosexuality justifying it and saying that homosexuality is okay in Islam. Let me ask you, is homosexuality all right in Islam? Is LGBTQ activism all right in Islam? Do we support LGBTQ activism? We don't do that. But very sadly, I don't wish to name who that person is. He has written a book. Just wait a moment. Okay, he has written a book, justifying homosexuality. I don't usually, get into this, trend of, naming a person and refuting them publicly. But there's actually a person, very sad. I don't wish to name them, because my heart won't feel right if I name them. In this person, to look like an intellectual, they post pictures of, this person's book on their Instagram. Right, a person with a very basic idea of usul fiqh won't do it, right? Just to show that they're an intellectual, they'll post pictures of the pages they're reading on Instagram, and most of these pages are from liberal Muslims, saying that hijab is not mandatory, LGBTQ homosexuality is all right. A lot of people reading these stories and these statuses, they tend to believe that this is true. It's a very sad reality. We don't change rules of Islam to fit the liberal narrative. Exactly, the woman mosque in Calicut and all these things, right? Completely trying to liberalize Islam. A lot of people are falling into it. Because it looks beautiful. If you saw a Nike shoe, if you saw an Alan Solly shoe, that cost maybe 5,000 or 10,000 rupees or 15,000 or 20,000 rupees, of course it's going to look beautiful. Of course, it's going to look amazing. Of course, it's going to look shiny because it's expensive. The leather quality and the materials will be good. But would you go to the extent of cutting your legs to fit the shoes? Of course, no. We have to apply the same principle here. Regardless of how beautiful it looks on the outside, regardless of how wonderful it looks on the outside, we don't cut Islamic jurisprudence to fit in it, right? So we got to be careful of that. And then on the other side, we have people who are trying to make every single thing haram. We have on the other side, people trying to make every single thing haram. They don't know Islamic jurisprudence. They don't know usul fiqh. If they don't like something, they say it's haram. They say it's haram, right? Like there was a small kid. He did not like eating salad. When we asked why is it, why he doesn't like it, he says it's haram, right? It's a very close relative of mine. Very small kid, excusable. But he's trying to apply with his low-level rationality. He's trying to apply haram into everything he doesn't like. Right? If you don't like something, don't label it as haram. Right? If you don't like eating beef, do you name it as haram? We don't do that. We don't do that. So don't label everything as haram. All right. Islam is not fully about haram and halal. Everything is not haram. So don't speak on jurisprudence if you are not well versed in it. Don't speak on jurisprudence if you are not well versed in it. Okay, this is very, very important. And Islam is not only about haram and halal. Out of these 6,236 verses in the Holy Quran, very few talk about jurisprudence. But that doesn't mean jurisprudence is not important. Jurisprudence is one of the pillars of Islam. It's the founding stones. It's the founding stones. It's very important. The structure that we have in Islam is very important. But at the same time, Islam is not completely about haram and halal, in which you label everything as haram. The Prophet ﷺ first taught the companions iman before teaching them halal and haram. So it should be on the basis of aqidah. Jurisprudence should actually be built on aqidah. This is very, very important. And we discussed this in the last class, so I don't wish to go into much deeper discussion on that. And the hadith that we mentioned earlier, does anyone remember the hadith? Do you guys need to see the hadith again? We started with the hadith in the last class. Would you like to read the hadith again? Or do you guys remember it? Okay, for the sake of making it a bit more clear, I'll go back to the first slide. Read the hadith, just wait. After reading the hadith, say yes in the chat. After reading the hadith, say yes in the chat. From An-Nu'man ibn Bashir radiallahu anhu said that I heard Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam say, that which is lawful is clear and that which is forbidden is clear. Between them are doubtful matters about which many of the people have no knowledge. So whoever avoids doubtful matters saves his religion and his honor, and whoever falls into doubtful matters falls into what is forbidden. Just like a shepherd who grazes a sheep near to a private pasture of another, he will soon stray onto it. Indeed, for every king there is a private preserve. Indeed, the preserve of Allah are those things which He has forbidden. Indeed, there is a piece of flesh in the body which if it is good, then the whole body is good. But if it is correct, then the whole body is correct. Indeed, it is a heart. If you have finished reading it, say yes in the chat. If you need more time to read it, take a screenshot and read it later on, inshallah. Okay, so this hadith actually shows the far sight of the Prophet ﷺ, the long vision of the Prophet ﷺ. All right, times keep changing. Times keep changing. Do you think the Prophet ﷺ, like 1,400 years ago, should have said that driving cars are halal? Should the Prophet ﷺ say, driving cars are halal, driving bike is halal? Should the Prophet ﷺ say that marijuana is haram? No, the Prophet ﷺ has set the foundational principles, and based on that, we can derive what is halal and what is haram. So this shows the far side of the Prophet ﷺ. He knew that there are certain things that are going to come, which is going to put my ummah in a sense of doubt. And I need to give my ummah a nasihah so that they can hold on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without them deviating. All right. Now, regardless of how much the time change, the base of Islamic jurisprudence stays the same. For example, some people say, come on, man, this is the 21st century. Do we need to still wear hijab in the 21st century? Do you think that is a justified argument? Do you think that's a justified argument? It is a logical fallacy that is rooted in progressivism, which says that everything progressive and modern is the most moral. Or the most modern is the most moral. Yes, the appeal to novelty, that is the logical fallacy there, but it's founded on the liberal progressive philosophy. Anyway, the base of Islamic jurisprudence stays the same, regardless of how much the time changes. But there are certain issues that where there is ikhtilaf, and we'll discuss how to go about it. And one of it is to avoid the risk-free path. The scholars search and research about contemporary jurisprudence affairs based on these principles. For example, when it comes to taking certain loans, maybe educational loans, when it comes to doing certain things, the scholars look at the fundamental principles, the maqasid shar'i and all these things, and they derive rulings accordingly, right? Now, this hadith actually has an analogy. Just like a shepherd who grazes a sheep near to a private pasture of another, he will soon stray onto it. Indeed, for every king there is a private pasture preserve or private preserve. Indeed, the preserve of Allah are those things which He has forbidden. Indeed, there is a piece of flesh in the body which, if it is good, then the whole body is good. If it is corrupt, then the whole body is corrupt. Indeed, it is a heart. Okay. Now, how many of you understood it? If you understood this, say yes in the chat. I'm going to be explaining it, but I just want to know how many of you understood what is taught here. All right. Now, a shepherd usually grazes his sheep near a private pasture, right? Near a private pasture. And every king will have their own private land, private real estate, right? Just wait a moment. Excuse me. All right, so I was saying that every king has a private pasture, in which he can do things that he wants in that land. He can build, he can graze his animals in that private preserve. Indeed, the preserve of Allah are those things which He has forbidden. So that is the preserve, that is the pasture of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Now we'll get into a deeper discussion of this analogy so that we get a few more insights from it. According to a dictionary of Islam, hima, which is actually the word used in this particular hadith, hima literally means guarded or forbidden, which is a portion of land reserved by the ruler of a country as a grazing ground, a private pasture. So hima is actually used here to refer to the private pasture, but it has the etymological meaning of guarded and forbidden. So truly, every prince or every king has a hima, which is forbidden to the people, and the hima is the thing forbidden by him to men. So no person is allowed to enter it. If we enter it, it'll be considered as trespassing. There'll be charges against him. There'll be punishments, right? In other words, the grounds reserved for animals belonging to the king, which are out of bounds for others' animals. So if others' animals extend beyond these bounds and grace in the king's hima, owners will be punished. Right? Let me simplify it, a bit more. Imagine that you're a shepherd and you're grazing your animals, like your sheep and your cattle, and you're grazing them, and suddenly a sheep enters into a private property, a private land, and eat something from that private land. Do you think that will be considered as a crime according to jurisdiction, according to the legal sections, the legal rulings? Would that be considered as a crime? Would the shepherd be punished? Imagine all the cattle and the sheep, they went to the private land, they just destroyed all the land, eating all the fruits and everything. Of course they'll be punished, right? That's how jurisdiction works. It'll be punished. So this is a beautiful simile that shows to us that those who violate Allah's prohibitions will be punished. So there's actually a certain area in which we are not supposed to go. We are not supposed to go to. It is haram, very clearly haram, right? If we go to that, we will be punished. If we go to that, we will be punished. Now, let me explain it a bit more deeply. What it basically means is that if you force the jihad, you will open doors to haram. How is that? Just like a sheep who goes near to the land has a higher probability of getting into the land and being punished, right? Being punished. So when it comes to the perimeters of the land, is it better to stay far away from it, or is it better to stay on the boundary and walk on the boundary, doing gymnastics on the boundary? Is that what should we be doing? No, we should be staying far away from it as far as possible, as far as possible. And this is the beauty of this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he had a very, very powerful ability to convey huge insights in small, certain, precise, accurate words. Does anyone know what it is called in Arabic? Does anyone know what it is called in Arabic? I think I said it earlier in the classes. Very good. It's called Jawami' al-Kalim. And just look at the beauty of this particular analogy. Subhanallah, very insightful, very insightful. The scholars are actually the inheritors of the prophets. Al-ulama'u wuratha'ul anbiya. Al-ulama waratha al-anbiya, right? So we stick to the jumhur al-ulama, the majority of the scholars, because the majority of the scholars can't deviate from a certain mas'ala, can't deviate on a certain mas'ala, right? So if you see a certain scholar who has a different dalil than you, do you think that you just go out and you say that this guy is a wall, this guy's a mughal, this guy's a bad guy? Is that what you do? No. In fiqh, we can have difference of opinion, right? Fiqh actually has that expansive area where which a scholar has the freedom to form opinions on the basis of dalil. It should be based on the Quran and Sunnah, but if it is based on the Quran and Sunnah, he has the ability to do independent ijtihad, independent opinions. But according to us, from our perspective, it is far more safe to stick with the majority of the scholars, or or a single scholar who says something that is very different from the majority. What should we be doing? Should we be sticking to majority or the single? If you say majority, type M. If you say single, type S. It's always better to stick with the majority. Based on this particular hadith, it's not good for us to take risks when it comes to matters of our iman. Okay, now we said that yes, we can have difference of opinion, but does that mean we can't criticize? We can criticize, but it should be constructive criticism. It should be with good adab. When you go to that scholar, you treat that scholar with great respect, and we talk to them. A good example of this is actually the ikhtilaf between Sheikh Ibn Baz and Sheikh Nasiruddin Albani. Like, these are the stars of our ummah, one of the most brilliant, most intellectual, most well-learned scholars of the 21st century. Sheikh Nasiruddin Albani is actually the teacher of my teacher, who is Sheikh Osama Abdul Azim. And Sheikh Nasiruddin Albani had a difference of opinion with Sheikh Ibn Baz. But if we see them talking to each other, the amount of respect they had with each other, the amount of adab they had while talking to each other, subhanallah, we'll be shocked. The beauty of their manners. That's how they talk with each other. But today, if there is a small difference of opinion on where to put our hand, while praying, on the chest or a bit down, or should we be doing, should we be pointing our fingers like in the tashahhud? Should it be, should we be waving it? Should we be, fluctuating it in this manner? Should we be fluctuating it in a homogeneous, heterogeneous manner? We're fighting with each other on that. We're just literally fighting with each other on this very simple mas'alas. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. And they're calling each other names. Like, you are an ignorant individual. You're a mubtadi', you're a kafir, you're this and you're that. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Right? So these are things that great scholars should be discussing. And let me tell you a fun incident. All right, this happened while I was studying in my higher secondary. In my class, there were a few guys who were the debate was on the topic: during sunnah prayer in tahajjud, should we be waving our hands? Like this is the main discussion. They're fighting with each other. While this guy, they don't even pray their 5 daily prayers. They don't even pray their 5 daily prayers, but they're having this huge international debate on should they be moving their hands in sunnah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, ma bika ya rajul. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Very unnecessary. And then we have the trend where in which certain things that should be discussed among scholars. These people, they're conducting huge conferences, they're building huge stages, and they're discussing it among the larger society and putting the entire society in confusion. That is not the hikmah of the scholars. These are not the hikmah of the scholars. So there's another insight, or there's another part of this hadith, and this part will be ending today, inshallah. And that is this part. Indeed, there's a piece of flesh in the body which if it is good, then the whole body is good. But if it is corrupt, then the whole body is corrupt. Indeed, it is the heart. Indeed, it is the heart. Now here, is it talking about the physical heart with the 4 chambers, connected with the veins and arteries, the pumping organ of the body? No, it is referring to the physical heart. It is referring to the physical heart, right? Sorry, the spiritual heart. Sorry, the spiritual heart. It is referring to the spiritual heart. This is not referring to the physical heart. Now, there's another, discussion that is going on in psychology, which is about, heart having a very prominent role in thinking and emotions and all these things. I would recommend all of you to read the research articles. If you know such research articles, please do forward it in the group. A lot of people will benefit, inshallah. But since that is not our topic for now, we'll be discussing about the spiritual heart. If your heart is good, then everything will be good. Does anyone know what the Arabic word for heart is? Anyone know the Arabic word for heart? Qalb. But if you look at the etymological masdar, the root of the word, qalb basically means something that keeps on changing. That's why we have the dua, Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Which means, Ya Allah, you are the turner of the hearts. Please make our hearts firm in your religion. So heart keeps on changing. Heart, the Arabic word for heart is qalb. It comes from the word that means something that keeps on changing, something that keeps on turning, right? Something that keeps on turning. Now, the question is, what is the connection between the heart and the above mentioned hadith? Why would the Prophet ﷺ mention about the heart in a hadith that talks about ikhtilaf and shubuhat? What do you think? Okay, one person is saying, so only Allah in your heart and nothing else. All right, good point. What about others? What is the connection between the heart and the above mentioned hadith? Very good point. Tazkiyah, very good. Heart is a president of your body. Very good. Very good. Good points, good points. Intention, very good. If the heart is pure, a good decision will be made. Very good. Intention of the heart decides every other action. Very good point. Very good point. All right. Now, this hadith states that doing what is halal, keeping away from what is haram, and avoiding doubtful things constitute an indication of a sound heart. A sound heart will not be pulled towards something that is haram naturally. A sound heart will not be pulled towards something that is filthy and vulgar. A heart that is connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not be pulled into something that is very filthy, right? This reminds me of a Sufi saint who was saying that they're deriving very problematic things from the Quran and Sunnah by misinterpreting it. And they're saying that if I reach a daraja where in which my heart is sound and where in which my heart is good, I don't need to pray. I can engage in any sin that I want. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. What are you saying here? If you had a sound heart, then you will obviously be praying. If you had a sound heart, you will not, be pulled towards something that is haram. So we got to be very careful. This also points towards the importance of aqidah. Anyway, so a sound heart will not be pulled towards something that is haram, right? And the evidence that a lot of these people use is from the Holy Quran. وَاعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ. وَاعْبُدْ رَبَّكَ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَكَ الْيَقِينَ is actually a verse in the Holy Quran which translates to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until the matter of certainty comes to you. And if you look at any scholar in Islam, the explanation they have given for this ayah is that certainty here means death. So the ayah is basically saying that worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until death come to you. Until death come to you. So worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as long as you're alive. That is what this ayah is meaning. But these people, they have misinterpreted it by saying, okay, I only need to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until I am fully convinced, until I have full certainty. So these people do a lot of adhkar, and then finally they feel that they have gotten certainty. Then after that, they will stop worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They'll start engaging in sins. They'll start doing the salawat. It's a very, very sad thing. It's a very, very sad thing. If you have a sound heart, you will not be pulled to these haram matters. Even if it's a doubtful matter, you will avoid it. You will avoid it, right? You won't stand for justification. You won't try to look for loopholes and, these excuses, right? These excuses, that is oriented towards fulfilling your desire. You won't do that, right? Now, there are two types of hearts. I'll be taking a bit more time and then I'll be ending, inshallah. There are two types of hearts. There is the qalbun salih and the qalbun fasid. The qalbun salih is actually the good heart, and the qalbun fasid is a heart that has been, problematic. Like it's an immoral heart, right? It's a destroyed heart. A qalbun fasid is pulled towards all the corrupted and immoral and vulgar matters. They'll try to make loopholes, and they'll try to make, try to find fatwas, cherry pick fatwas to prove that, their desires are correct, right? Their desires are halal. People trying to, find masturbation as halal, pornography is halal, drug addiction is halal, marijuana is halal, interest is halal, and all those things. But a qalbun salih will stay away from it. The qalbun salih will feel that sense of regret and pain in their heart, like when approaching these things. The Prophet ﷺ, that is why he always made the dua, Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. So we should always pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala this dua. If you have recited this dua now 3 times, say yes in the chat. Recite the dua 3 times, very deeply, and then say yes in the chat. By understanding the meaning. Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub. Ya Allah, you are the turner of our hearts. Thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Please make my heart firm on your religion. Allahumma ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. If you need to know the meaning again, go and search on Google, like you'll find the meaning. It's a very prominent and prevalent and relevant dua. So purify your hearts. Purify your hearts. Right? Never ever approach doubtful matters. It's always better to stay away. Try to stick to the halal and stay away from the haram. Even if everyone does it, it won't become halal. It won't become halal, right? And we know the story of the Sahaba who were promised Jannah, the Ashar al-Mubashirin, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, Uthman bin Affan radiallahu anhu, Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anhu. Like about 10 Sahabas were actually promised Jannah. Do you think after being promised Jannah, they engage in a lot of, all the harmful, sinful things? No. And this actually proves, even if you promise Jannah, like it doesn't mean you can, commit sins. You can commit sins, right? So purify your hearts, keep on purifying your hearts. And with that, we are going to end, inshallah. And I would like to end with a pro tip. And, at the end of every session, we're having something called as a pro tip. And this is supposed to help you improve from a psychological perspective with regards to productivity. And that is, never let self-doubt hold you captive. Now, some people have this sense of complex in themselves. It can be an inferiority complex, thinking, I don't have the ability to do this. I don't think I can do this. I don't think I will be able to do this. I don't think I'll be able to start that business. I don't think I have the skill to do it. I don't think I have the talent to stand up and speak out. I don't have this and that. And that self-doubt, it is very, very problematic. I know a lot of people who have a lot of potential, who have a lot of talents, who have a lot of skills, who did not grow in life, who did not develop in life because of self-doubt. They were scared of what people would think. They were scared. They were scared. They just thought, if I stand up and if I give a speech, what will people think? What will people do to me? Will people want to be my friends? They have these self-doubts, and they are captives of these self-doubts. They're trying to satisfy every single people around them, and they are jailed. They are jailed with the shackles of self-doubt. They're jailed with the shackles of self-doubt. So never ever let self-doubt hold you captive. When I say this, I need to put this into a context, all right? Because we have the positive liberal psychology saying that everything is possible. Nothing is impossible. If you stood at the height of a mountain or a building, and then you have the self-doubt saying that if you jump, you're going to die, don't take this particular quote and apply it there, all right? I'm not going to be responsible if you commit suicide, all right? So never let self-doubt hold you captive. So, self-doubt is one thing, and the opposite of that is, of course, overconfidence, thinking that everything is possible. I can do everything, putting your entire, investment, like putting your entire wealth and all your money into one investment without doing the, clear-cut cost-benefit analysis. Like that is overconfidence. That is not self-doubt. So what I'm basically saying is, it's always good to take some risk in your life, but that doesn't mean like you be overconfident and jump into risks. All right. If you do that, of course, like you have the choice whether to do it or not, but you're not free from the consequences of your choice. All right. It's a very, very important thing that we need to understand. Finally, let me remind you of the audio tasks and the video assignments. Post your audio task today itself, inshallah. and make sure you post your video assignment within 1 week, inshallah. And let me just remind you one thing, and that is that we are having a Hifl club. How many of you have joined the Hifl club? If you have joined the Hifl club, say yes in the chat. It's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, inshallah. It's going to be an amazing journey. A lot of people, they want to learn the Holy Quran, but the situation, their environment, it hasn't given them enough time and opportunities. So inshallah, we'll be starting on the journey. It's going to be very simple. We're going to be learning a few ayats per day, and we're just going to take it step by step, inshallah, step by step. If you have registered, or if you want to register now, you can contact Companions of Jannah. If you have registered and are not added to the group, contact Companions of Jannah. Inshallah, the coordinators will sort it out. I want you all to keep the Companions of Jannah coordinators and the volunteers, the dedicated and dynamic members, the people who are very working devotedly to coordinate the sessions, to publish the posters and everything. Keep them in your prayers. This is very, very important. Make dua for them from the depth of your heart. This is the greatest gift that you can give for them. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless them with the best in the dunya and the akhirah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward them for their wonderful works. And if you want to be part of the da'wah team, just be very active in COJ Ummah. If you're very active in COJ Ummah, yes, we'll open for you doors to be part of the da'wah team, where in which you can contribute to the Ummah with all the skills that you have, inshallah. So with that, we end today. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا إننا نسألك حبك وحب من يحبك وحب عمل يقرب إلى حبك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. Jazakallah khair, Brother Wafi, for such an amazing session. Hope this session was very beneficial to you all. Hope you all have noted down the notes and things. I would like to thank Brother Nabil for a beautiful qiraat, then Sister Fadia for a beautiful introduction. Jazakallah khair, every participant who has attended this session. So I would like to end the session by praying, may Allah help all of us to stay in routine with our deen. اللهم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلبي على دينك. جزاك الله خير once again. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.